Hello everyone and welcome to an incredible game from the 1955 USSR Championship between Boris Spassky and Mark Taimanov. Now, yesterday we've learned the news of the passing of the former world champion Boris Spassky, who was the 10th world champion, and it's something that, well, for example, these two gentlemen have in common. Most people remember them by their loss to Bobby Fischer. Spassky by losing his World Chess Championship match in 1972 to Bobby Fischer, and Mark Taimanov on losing the candidates match against Bobby Fischer in 1971 prior to the match against Spassky with a staggering result of 6-0. So it's, I mean, just in those days, if you played against Fischer, that was most likely the result. However, prior to facing Fischer in the World Chess Championship match, Spassky had a positive score against Fischer. Not just a positive score, he had a 100% wins against Bobby Fischer. They played two classical games, and both were won by Spassky. First one I've covered many times on the channel. I even did remakes on the game, and it is the one where Spassky employs the King's Gambit against Fischer. If you haven't seen that game, I also suggest maybe you watch it before even this video. Will be the first link in the description below, and the second link I will provide you is Spassky's sort of immortal game against Bent Larsen. It was the 1970 USSR against the world match, and many of you have requested for me to show that game, but I've already shown it some 7 years ago, and it is only 17 moves, so probably I will not be making a remake. Although if you guys really want, I could. I mean, it's really a beautiful game. So check out those two links even before watching this game. And this game I've never seen, and that's why I've chosen this to be the first game. And we could show a couple of games by Spassky. I'm also going to show you the second game he played against Fischer before the World Chess Championship match, as that is the one I've never shown on the channel, and I think now's well, as a good a time as any. But for this video, I've prepared Boris Spassky versus Mark Taimanov, and Spassky was 18 years old at the time. Already next year, I think he was still 18 when he qualified. He was the youngest candidate ever to participate in the candidates tournament. And interestingly, okay, Smyslov won that tournament, but Spassky did better than, for example, Petrosyan, who later on, of course, Spassky challenged for the World Chess Championship title. So even at such a young age, Spassky already did better than Tigran in the candidates tournament. But yeah, it's very interesting for this game that, like I said, Spassky was very young. He was 18 years old when this game was played. Taimanov was maybe 30, maybe 29, something below 30. And Spassky did not win this tournament. The tournament was won by Yefim Geller with an impressive result of 16 out of 26, and Smyslov won second place with 15 out of 26. And then three, well, future world champions and former world champions Boris Spassky, Tigran Petrosyan, and Mikhail Botvinnik shared third place. So it was a pretty crazy tournament, but this is the game that really stands out, as it's, you know, there are combinations. Sometimes, you know, we call it spidey sense, we call it tactical awareness, we call it whatever. Here, combination is featured that I don't think we've ever seen before, because it's just very special. And once you see it, I think you guys will remember it for the rest of your lives. So yeah, let's check it out. Spassky versus Taimanov, USSR 1955 World Chess Championship, and Spassky opens with pawn to e4. Taimanov replies with pawn to e5, and here we have knight to f3. Okay, knight to c6 and bishop to b5. Now this game will follow modern theory for quite some time, as the Ruy Lopez just is a very classical opening, and the theory exists for like 100 years. We have a6, Morphy's defense, bishop to a4, and pawn to b5. We have bishop to b3, and now knight to a5, going after the bishop here. We have castles kingside, and now pawn to d6. We have pawn to d4. Spassky strikes in the center, and even nowadays he captures on d4 and knight captures on b3 are the two most common moves. Knight captures on b3 is played by Mark. A captures on b3, and now pawn to f6, strengthening the e5 pawn. And usually we say don't play f6. F6 is you know, move that loses all games. Here it is, however, still in 2025 considered a book move, so it is the top move recommended by the engine. Knight to c3, we have bishop to b7, and knight to h4. We have knight to e7, and d captures on e5. We have d captures on e5, offering a queen trade, and Spassky politely declines. Plays queen to f3, we have queen to d7, and the rook to d1. And this is where the game starts to become incredibly interesting. Where does the queen go? Of course, the e6. The queen is very, very strong on e6, controls the entire board. And now we have bishop to e3. Some years later, in 1987, Vishwanathan Anand will actually use this exact same position in the Under-20 World Championship against Seaman Agdestein, and win a very nice game with knight to d5. But here we have bishop to e3, and I don't really have a reference, but I think it was a completely new move played at the time. There were no other games where bishop to e3 was played, and there are a couple, of course, after this game was played, but at the time, this is now can be considered a completely new game. And what you can do here is you can play g6. It's a very good move. Pawn to h5, also a very good move. But Mark did neither of the two. He actually played pawn to g5, which makes perfect sense. I mean, you really don't want to deny it there. If queen h5, you're ready to block with queen to f7. So it doesn't seem like there's much Spassky can do here. But that's why I loved this game as soon as I saw it. It comes as a recommendation, actually was recommended to me by email by Yeremia Nicolescu. And I was very happy about that because I haven't seen the game, and what follows next is just beautiful. So feel free to pause the video and try to find what Mark missed and what Spassky most certainly found while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on being able to use an entire board while, you know, processing lines. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is knight captures on b5. And I mean, it's sort of like a butterfly effect combination where there's a hanging knight on h4, and you just sacrifice a knight on the other side of the board. Knight captures on b5. And what's the reason for this? Obviously, knight captures on c7 is the threat. If the knight on h4 is captured, you're going to play knight captures on c7. A beautiful royal fork, and black resigns. So that's not going to happen. But what is the point? I mean, the rook is defended. Well, the point is this g5 move. Because what is black's plan if a queen to h5 is played? The plan, of course, is queen to f7. And this already, I'm sure, is more than enough if you haven't already figured out what was happening. So I will now show it. A captures on b5 was played, and now Spassky played queen to h5 with check. And the problem is, if you block with the knight, then we just play rook captures on a8, bishop captures, and you can play a nice simple knight captures on g6. H captures, you can pick up the rook, but you can also capture on g6, and after the king moves, bishop c5, and that's it. There's nowhere for the black king to go. Only move you have is queen to d6, and that's, of course, a game over. So after queen to h5 check, queen to f7 was played, and now you realize what is happening. Rook captures on a8 with check, removing the defender of the d8 square, basically. Bishop captures on a8, and now rook to d8 with check, deflecting the black king from defense of the queen on f7. King captures and queen captures on f7. So Spassky wins Mark's queen, but Mark does have quite a lot of material for the queen. He plays g captures on h4, and he has a knight, a light square bishop, and a rook for the queen. The problem is the pieces are not coordinating properly, and all of these pawns will now fall, and that will be a huge issue for Mark. Queen captures on f6, we have rook to g8, and now pawn to f3. Pawn to h3, going after the g2 pawn, g3. Not easy to coordinate those pieces. We have king to e8, Spassky just helps himself to a nice juicy pawn on e5, rook to g6, and now queen captures on b5 check as well. We have bishop to c6, and queen to b8 with check, king to f7, and also queen captures on c7. So now Spassky has 5 extra pawns, and that means the b and c pawns will now start marching forward. We have rook to f6, putting pressure on the f3 pawn, but just bishop to g5, saying, okay, you capture the pawn. On f3, I'm gonna remove the defender of the bishop and just win material. So rook to e6 is played. We have pawn to b4. Not just starting to advance the pawn, but also stopping any future bishop to c5 checks. King to g8 unpinning from the 7th rank, and now queen to b8. We have king to knight to g6 and king to f2. We have knight to e5 putting pressure on the f3 pawn, just pawn to b5. Now this does allow for a check, but the bishop is currently pinned, so you have to figure that out. So bishop to e8, now unpinning. If you could start delivering checks with those bishops, it would be great. So bishop back to e5. Spassky just prevents that with bishop to d6, attacking the queen, queen to c8, and now king to f7. We have pawn to b6, the pawn is marching forward, rook to f6, putting pressure on the f3 pawn, but it is easily stopped. Bishop to f4, and the c5 square is now covered by the queen, so there is no bishop to c5 check. We have bishop to d7, attacking the queen, and now Spassky finishes in great style, plays pawn to b7, and you could win the queen, but then Spassky gets another queen, and you're going to be down a bishop. So bishop to e6, and now just bishop captures on e5, and that's all there is to it. Bishop captures b8 queen, Spassky gets the second queen into the game, and Mark just captured on c8, and he was in this position on move 38 that Mark Taimanov resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. Spassky will just capture on e5, he will now have a queen versus rook and bishop, and he will start pushing those passed pawns forward. Even these pawns can be pushed forward. I mean, this is completely unplayable. So yeah, brilliant game by Spassky. Like I said, I've never seen a combination quite like this one. Of course, combinations are similar and we could find similarities, but I thought you guys would really appreciate this one. So like I said, if you haven't seen Spassky's first ever game against Bobby Fischer, the legendary King's Gambit game will be the first link in the description below, and also do check out Boris Spassky's immortal game against Bent Larsen, just 17 moves short. Second link in the description below. I recommend you watch both of the games, and also in both of those videos you can see Medo chilling on the couch in the back. And yeah, like I said, both of these gentlemen will be remembered for losing their games to Bobby Fischer, but of course, like every world champion, Spassky was much more. He, like I said, was the youngest candidate ever. He won the World Chess Championship title, took it away from Petrosyan, then faced Bobby Fischer in a very unlikely event. You know, like I said many times, if it wasn't for Spassky, the match would never take place, and Fischer would never be allowed to play. So Spassky was just an incredible chess player, an incredible gentleman, you know, an incredible human being. He was a journalist. He was a father. He had a wife. He had a family. And even if you remember, during the Bobby Fischer saga, we discussed that Spassky wasn't, he didn't even spend time away from his family during the preparation for the match against Bobby Fischer. He would travel by car every day, 45 minutes to an hour, depending on the weather. And, you know, he would prepare there with young Anatoly Karpov, with Levon Ney, with, he had quite a few very strong seconds. And then he would return back to his family. Whereas Bobby Fischer had chess, and that is it. You know, if you wanted to, even if you you know, devoted your entire life to chess like Bobby did, chances are you still would not be able to beat Bobby Fischer. He was just that kind of a player, that kind of a he was just that strong. And you know, Spassky was one of the few that was willing to take him on, even, you know, some would say not even at full strength, as he was enjoying life. He was doing many things other than chess, and you know, taking Fischer on like that was you know, definitely a mark of a true champion. And not only that, the match against Bobby Fischer would never happen had it not been for Spassky. I mean, Spassky was helping Fischer throughout his entire life. I mean, we remember tournaments where Fischer started poorly, you know, he had a bad day, he had a bad game, he had a bad few games, and then Spassky would just drag him out of his hotel room, take a walk with Fischer, show him how beautiful the world is, you know, enjoy the world, let's go out, let's have a drink, let's, you know, enjoy a meal, and all of a sudden Bobby would have a brilliant second half of the tournament. So, if anything, Spassky, even Spassky being the great champion that he was, made Fischer the champion that he was. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, do check out the two links in the description below. Brilliant games by Spassky, and the video I'm doing next is the second game that Fischer played against Spassky. the one that I haven't covered up until this point, and like I said, this is, I believe, the proper time to cover it. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank Amelia Gray Scott, Casey Jones, Janko Popovic, Kushan Popushin, and David Kasparian for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. And if you guys want, you feel free to suggest any Boris Spassky game that you think it's interesting that I could cover. I don't mind, I could do a short Boris Spassky saga if you guys are up to it. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.